Hello there everyone, this is Brother Birch. In this video, I'm going to go ahead and do the lesson 1 assignment. I know I had another video about this, but sometimes I think repetition just helps. So I'm going to just go through these one by one and we'll just kind of go as quickly as possible. I know there's a lot of unknowns here. I just want to give you guys a heads up that this course is designed to prepare you for a job. And in a job, you're not always given solutions, you're not always given textbooks. Instead, you are given requirements that you're expected to meet through your own devices, through researching stuff and figuring out solutions and problem solving. And it's very difficult, but that is why, as you look through other things in here, there's not a whole lot of content to help you kind of get through this on your own. With that said, this first month's worth of these first 4 lessons worth of assignments in this course, I do give you solutions on, and especially lesson 1 I'll really help you out on. So create a GitHub repository. I just opened up GitHub here and I'll say new repository and I'll say CSE341. I'll just say Birch. I need this to be a unique name and I have a bunch of CSE341 repositories. I'll leave it public and I'm just going to copy that URL and I'm going to clone it here in VS Code. So open up a new window here in VS Code and I'll say clone git repository. I'm just going to paste it. Whoops, paste it up here. Say clone from URL, and I'll go ahead and just put this on my desktop. And I'll say open. Excuse me. All right, so this is open, CSE341 Birch. It has absolutely nothing in it. Let's go ahead and look at the requirements for this assignment. Use npm init, so that's some nice instruction right there, to start a new node project from scratch. So I'm just going to open up my terminal here and I'll say npm init. And I could change these things. It opens up this little command line interface here. I'm just going to leave it all with its defaults. Okay. Man, one thing I should have changed. So it generates this package JSON. The one thing I want to change, I just want it to reference my server.js file instead of an index.js file. Okay. So I am going to make a new server.js file. And in this server.js file, first I'm going to say, hey, we need to use express. So I'll say var express equals require express, which is a node package that I currently don't have installed right now. Require. Say var app equals express. And then we'll say app.listen on port 3000. Give it a nice anonymous function here and say console.log server is running on port 3000. Okay, so let's see if this works. I'm just going to run npm start. Have a few issues here, but it says cannot find module express. So I'm just going to say npm I -- save. I think it's save express. By putting in save there, it should add it to my package JSON, and it did. Okay, just added that, which is perfect. It also created a package lock JSON and a node modules folder. Both of these are related to my packages that I have installed for the project, and I should never modify. Sometimes I'll delete them if I need to do a fresh npm install, which I could just do like that, and that will install all of the dependencies that are listed in my package.json. You'll never delete the package JSON. You need that. Okay. All right, now I'll try to run npm start, and it says server is running on port 3000. Perfect. That is all my application is doing right now, okay? All right, let's go ahead and make a route. So with Express, I can do something pretty cool. I can just say const routes equals require express dot router. If it'll let me type. There we go. All right, and then I can say routes.get. If I receive a get request to my home page, then I want to do something. And so again, I'm going to do another anonymous function here. And all anonymous means is I didn't give this function a name, but this right here is a function. This right here is a function being called inside of another function. And I'm just going to say res.json awesome person. So if I send a GET request to my home page, I should see this JSON response. Okay. Now it's not going to re-render my server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop that, and I'm going to say npm I --save -dev nodemon. This will allow me to run it, and nodemon will watch for changes. So if I click on package.json, you can see this shows up in my dev dependencies, not my dependencies. Dependencies are what the app needs to run. Dev dependencies make it easier for me to work on my app. But in the package.json under my scripts, I am going to add one here. I'll say, hey, I have a start script, and I'm just going to say nodemon server.js. Okay. Now if I run npm start, it should run that nodemon server.js command. And now it says running on port 3000. Okay. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. I'm going to install an extension called REST Client. If you would prefer to use something like Postman, you totally can. And there are a bunch of REST clients in VS Code that you can install. But this is a nice, easy one. If you look at the documentation here, it just says, hey, you need to make a REST file, and you can send requests like this. So what I'm going to do after I've installed this, I'm just going to make a new file. I'll call it .rest. And I'm going to put this here. But running locally, it's HTTP, and I'm on port 3000. Okay, so if I send this request, this will simulate a request getting sent to, well, it's not going to simulate it. It's going to send a request to my server, which is running on port 3000. It's going to pick up this route, and I should see awesome person being sent back. Okay, if I was on a front end, this would work exactly the same. I could send a fetch request from client-side JavaScript code, and I would get this awesome person back. Let's send it, and let's see if it works. So that did not work. It says, let's see here. Either the requested service isn't running on the requested server port. Okay, that's totally fine. There are actually a couple things that I want to change in here first anyways. So the first thing that I want to change is in my server.js file. I could technically put my entire application in here, but these routes are going to get really, really big. So I actually want to move this somewhere else. So I am going to make a routes folder. And inside of that folder, I'll go ahead and make an index.js file. Okay. And in there, inside of this routes index file, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing that I did here, except I'm going to move the routes out of there. Okay. So I'll have the routes here. And then I just need to make sure to export module.exports equals routes. Whoops, routes. Okay. So I'll export that. And then I need to just make sure to use that in here. So we have express, I'll say app.use, and I'll just say, hey, these home routes, and I'll say require /routes. Okay, I could say route/index. That would totally work. If I don't specify index, then it will reference that index file by default. Okay, so it looks like this is all running fine. I am going to stop it with Control-C. To restart it. Sometimes when I make new files, nodemon doesn't pick up on those new files by default. Okay, so let's try to hit this REST request again, and again it says it was rejected. So let's see, HTTP localhost 3000. Oh, that's why. That needs to be like that. Okay, let's send that request. There we go, and look, so we got a 200 code back, and we got that awesome person code back that we sent back. Okay, cool. This same thing I would probably be able to see in my browser. It's a simple GET request with no authentication headers or anything like that, so I should just be able to see that in my browser as well. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about where a controller comes in. Some of you noticed that we have this controllers folder. Okay, controllers are basically where I put all of my logic. So if I look at this routes file, I could end up with multiple of these, a lot of these, right, for every single route in my application. Well, this function, remember, is an anonymous function. I could give it a name. I could say const awesome function equals this. And then to call that awesome function on that route, I just have to plop it in there like that. Okay. Well, I don't want my routes file to have all of my logic. These functions are going to get pretty big. I'm going to make database queries and have a lot of business logic inside of these functions. And I don't want that cluttering up my routes files. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over to controllers, and I'm going to make a new file. I'll call it index.js. And I'm going to take that function, and I'm going to pop it in here. And I'll say module.exports If I want to return multiple things, I can do it like that. Okay, if I had another one, I could say number 2. If I had a function called number 2, I can just have a nice comma delimited list here. Okay, so that should export awesome function. And then over here, I'm just going to, let's see, that's in our routes. I'm going to say we're going to import our routes basically the same way that we did here. Okay, I'm going to say const my controller equals require dot slash controllers, and that will default to that index.js again. Okay, and then since we're importing the entire file, we'll just name awesome controller or awesome function after that my controller one. Okay, we had some errors up there before, but it looks like it's running okay now. Again, I'm going to stop it just because I made a new file. It says it's running on port 3000. I didn't change where the URL is going to be or what the content's going to be. So if this works again, then it means everything is connected up okay. Okay, so let's review a little bit. My server file, all it took to have a node server was just this. Okay, but I'm going to have routes. And so I listed all of my routes in here, which for this assignment, it's just one route. And then I listed my function for this route inside of this controller. Okay, if I wanted to do another one, I could do another one. I'm just going to do one more. I'll say another person, we'll call it that. Or maybe I'll say like return another person. My computer keeps on freezing up on me. Return another person, and I'll return that function as well, or I'll export that function as well. I'll call this super awesome person. Okay, and then in my routes, I'll decide when I want to do that. So I'm going to just paste that line of code, and I'll say even more. I'll just say awesome. Awesome. And then what did I call that function? Return another person. Just paste that right there. Okay, I can test this with my REST client. I should be able to send that. We still get awesome person, great. And then I'm gonna make a new request down here. In REST, I had to put these, or in this REST file for REST client, I had to put that 3 number signs there to put that, but I should just be able to put awesome, and it'll hit that other one and send back super awesome person. Okay, so hopefully you're starting to see how this very simple node application is gonna work. Okay, you can kind of ignore the package.json and the node modules, all right? And just because they have to do with the dependencies in the application, we never really have to worry about those too much once they're installed. We have the package.json, which tells us what basically the settings are of this application. The server.js file will be the server part of our application. One thing that I do want to fix is our port. So this port, if I try to deploy this to render, is not going to work. So I'm going to say const port equals, I think it's process.env.port, or we can say 3000. Okay, and all that means is if there is a port in an environment variable, like render will have, then we'll use that port. Otherwise, we'll use port 3000. Okay, I'm going to change these to backticks. And let's see, what's the syntax for that? There we go. Oops. Just like that. Okay, let's make sure everything's working. It looks like it is. Let's send another request. Awesome person, super awesome person. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Let's go back to our assignment to make sure that that all looks good. Create a web server, create a route in your server, the name of someone you know. So I will go back and fix that. It'll be my controller. Someone I know very well is my wife, Sarah Birch. Should be able to test that now and get Sarah Birch back. Looks great. You should see this data on the screen in the image below. Push to GitHub, publish to render. So before I push to GitHub, I don't want to push node modules up to GitHub. So I am going to make a git ignore. And in there, I'm just going to put node modules and save that. And now you can see that's kind of grayed out. Everything else I want in there. Okay, so I'm just going to say first commit, first assignment, and I'll commit that. I'm surprised it's not letting me push it. Okay, Your branch is based on origin main. Use get branch, we'll set that up. And get push -u origin main. See if it works. Oh, interesting. Okay, that looks like it worked out okay. Let's go to GitHub and make sure if I refresh this, I should see code here. Nice. Okay, next up, we are going to go to render.com. Okay, I'm just pulling that up real quick. And I'm just gonna copy this because we're gonna need this to deploy to. Okay, so right here, whoops. I'm gonna say new, and I'll say new web service. It says connect to a repository. I'll go ahead and just search. Oh, it's right there. That's nice that it sorts it by most recent commit. Okay, I'll copy that. Main, that is the branch that I have, right? Yep. All right. And environment node. Build command, I'm going to say npm install. Start command, node server.js. That all looks great. And I'll say create web service for free. Okay, this takes a bit. I'm going to pause the video while this is building. Hopefully it all works out okay. All right, it looks like it ran successfully. It only took a couple of minutes. I now should be able to take this URL and test it in my REST client. So I'm going to do the same thing I did a second ago, and I'll say get that. I'm not sure what this HTTP 1.1 is. I'll say send request, and that worked. Okay, it did take a little bit longer, which is kind of interesting to see. Yeah, does it say? So 665 milliseconds, and then running locally, let's see what that one took. 3 milliseconds, 314, and 3 again. Okay, 5 again, and 306. So kind of interesting to see. And then let me test out that awesome URL too. Okay, so sweet, it's totally working. This is on render. So yeah, that looks like it should be it. Let me double check here. Create a brief video. So yeah, that looks like that's it. I would just submit this URL for the GitHub one. I would submit this URL for the render one, and then wherever I publish my YouTube video too. Anyways, I hope this helps. Thank you so much.